convincing me of things.
Okay.
So what was I going to talk about?
You've had some concerns about the command structure within the LSPD.
Oh yeah, it's rickety at best.
Okay, let's hear it.
Just coming back into this department, I'm trying not to like doom it here, but this is just fact. There is no movement of officers' PPOs. Absolutely none. It's the people that basically what it is and feels like is that if you don't have 3 stripes on your arm, your voice does not matter. And I've talked to Moss, I've talked to Peters, or at least attempted to. I've talked to Haley. I've tried to talk to Den, trying to get his attention.
Explain particulars, because you're talking to someone who's not a cop.
I think the people up top, like 3 up, like three bars above, right? Sergeants up. When problems happen, imagine it like a Jenga tower, but instead of like rebuilding the tower, they just knock off the bottom blocks and hope for the best. Like, it's like...
Then fill those blocks again.
It's like having a rower, and you have 6 cooks and 6 command rower people telling how people row in one rower, but when shit gets south, they just fire the rower.
Now, what does that mean in practicality? So give me like a working example, because you're talking to someone who thinks like, you know, like what does like give me an example
of like how it would go down, like how it is
right
now.
Yeah.
There's cadets that do not get to see the light of day. There's people that don't even know their names, but they've been working for the department for 4 months, sitting in queue. I'm like,
are cadets not being taken out?
Cadets aren't being taken out because there's a
some
lack
are
of
being taken out
FTOs
more than others.
and because there's a lack of FTO appointment. When I'm sitting here begging and pleading.
Well, yeah, FTOs.
Well, there used to be a whole bunch, honestly. But now there's like 1, and it's Haley Maxwell.
They had him help lead Academy when he was recently rehired as a PPO. He wasn't an officer yet, but like they trusted him to do it.
I literally worked.
Is Hayes not taking people out? Is Anita not taking people out? Weren't they FTOs?
Anita is kind of. I mean, I love Anita, but she has completely stopped giving a fuck. She said, "Put me at officer," and I'm a coast basically. I mean, do your thing. She does great work when she does it, but she ain't doing what she used to.
So here's like the reality of how I see things, right? The lens I look through. The city has had a bit of a economic downturn, right? A consequence of increased inflation, right? Which may not mean anything to you as a police officer, but it does have a lot of influence on the rest of the city. Now, take for example, you can go run moonshine and make, I don't know, $25,000 an hour. I don't fucking know. A lot of money, right? Then why are you going to work a stall? Why are you going to work tow? Why are you going to work a civilian job when you could probably go and print money somewhere else and get the things that you need? Right?
Yeah.
As a consequence of that, there is significantly more crime, right? As the vast majority of the police department burns out. That burnout is present in both departments. I don't really give a fuck how many cops are on duty. None of that is relevant when it's about how many are doing day-to-day policing, right? You with me so far? You see where I'm going with this?
Yes.
Now, how do I know that the day-to-day isn't happening? Because when I see Den Shiesty leading a raid on what is supposedly one of the biggest weapon busts ever, and you have a bunch of stupid cunts who are more interested in getting him and Maxwell fired, where are they helping? Where when Pred is elected and energy is put into trying to get him out of office, where are these investigations on everybody else? I see the docket just as everyone else. I have eyes. I know who's blatantly doing a 1/10 of what these victims are doing, right? And seeing no movement in that direction. What does that tell me? The reality is that I think, just as a lot of people that have turned to the life of crime, is a lot of the police department are chasing the same thing, which is adrenaline. Which is why you get a bajillion cops justifying like that many units on a 24/7. Which is the very same reason that I'm sure criminals justify that they might be bored and they're going to shoot up somebody, right?
Yep.
And
so policing, the thing you brought up, I was like right on board. I was like, yep.
And so
conversely, though, oh sorry, go ahead.
But just to finish the thought, so what am I describing here? I'm describing a extreme amount of adrenaline junkying, right, on both ends of society, and what that does is, you know, when you drink too much coffee or caffeine and you're hopped up on adrenaline, you need more in order to satisfy the urge. And when that is the vast majority of the population and there's not really much in between, people crash out. And so where I'm going with this is, I definitely recognize what you're saying, right? But filling that hole is not an easy solution, just as it's a very difficult hole to fill with bringing more civilians into San Andreas. You get what I'm saying? Like,
I got
just
you.
as these FTOs are probably burnt out getting new cops in that are just going off and chasing and getting into shootouts, just as much as civilians are like, what's the point of being a civilian when, you know, we're at that sort of stage and there may not be like a good solution to it unless you got one, you know? And I'd love to hear, you know, what your solution might be, right?
Well, they've told me kind of my solution is a rough solution.
I don't think it's the appropriate time for it. I get what you're saying. I don't think that the state as a whole is capable of supporting it right now. But you're always welcome to pitch it.
Well,
maybe Nino and Michael disagree.
Yeah, I'd like to hear it.
Maeve knows my prior law history, and I've literally built departments from the ground. I may be dumb, but I'm not stupid. I'm very good at being kind of like Peters in the Ash Chief position. I'm very talented at seeing the problems as they lie and working them out one by one. I would say I'm much better at that than actual patrol. I've always been kind of that guy.
You're the one that a lot of the lower officers go to when they have concerns.
I am the shift one officer therapist right now.
I've actually witnessed that, like, while I was still employed with dispatch.
They come to me and ask me questions because, one, they're either too terrified to go up to a senior. Well, at the time, seniors were basically horrible, but I'm getting derailed. I pitched that I just went over to La Mesa and fucking dusted off the old uniforms and put on the trooper outfit. Made an oversight for the PD. Not the DOJ oversight. Make a new oversight. We don't need them to be the oversight. Like, for fuck's sake, all they do is investigate us and try to pinpoint us running a red light.
But so help me understand. So the oversight would what? Look for cracks in the police department, or
not so much. They would be, one, the state troopers. They'd be the state boys. They would handle the highways, the highwaymen, the docks, the import and the output, all that, the big stuff. Very specialized group of people.
Which BCSO was supposed to do, but
which they failed to do. So all they do is drive around waiting for the next ping in their Corvettes.
Yeah, and yes, that's the problem, right? That you're pointing at the biggest core issue that this cabinet has been facing from day one is a previously useless mayor that pumped the ego up of the BCSO high command and pretty much ingrained in them a mentality that there is no new constitution and that their department has full authority over the entire state. And so in order for this cabinet to make forward momentum in the interest of Los Santos County as a whole, I effectively need to take an iron grasp around LSPD's authority, right? And only then can what you're sort of explaining be implemented. Because otherwise, I want you to consider this, right? I think in concept, what you're describing sounds good, but in terms of implementation, you're just going to get a lot of deaf ears, and it would require you to get more authority, and before you know it, you're going to be no different than the marshals, regardless of whether you're a good guy versus someone else that might not be. You know what I mean? And the reason I explain it like this is a lot of people in their minds have, because of people run so heavily on emotion in San Andreas, that critical thinking goes out the window, right? And that's it doesn't matter if it's a cop, doesn't matter if it's a criminal, it's literally the same shit. Why does a cop decide to go pit someone at 180 miles an hour? Maybe they got triggered. Why does a criminal decide to blast a cop in a traffic stop? They probably got triggered. They let their emotions get over them and they forget the why. Why did something happen? Right? My point there is it's why I think a lot of people have believed that we just inherently just hate the marshals for who they are, rather than our problem with the amount of authority that they have taken, right?
Yes, 100%.
Is why is the marshals working with Hydra and committing felony obstruction of justice to make a point, right? Why is Pred being hyper investigated when evidence shows that they likely knew that the property that he purchased was a grow up before the purchase was even made, but still decided to attempt to arrest him and throw up a investigation on the docket? I mean, hell, Dundee ran a fucking like weapons op down in Vespucci very publicly. Where's the docket case on that? You get where I'm going with this?
Prim Dot Market, wasn't it?
Correct.
I even brought that up to people, and it seemed like nobody gave a flying fuck.
Yeah, it's like I said, you know,
I wasn't about to just one person walk in there and not have, because I'd have to get clearance to go undercover, right? Walk in there, do, you know, see what the hell's going on. And because I'm not just gonna walk down there on uniform and they're gonna shoot me on sight, right?
Smells to me like a free, you know, you would think, you know, you could chop it up for a million reasons, right? You can, but you know, the benefit that I have in the mayor's office is I speak to people of all walks of life, and it's not just the police department. And it's a reminder that I even have to give high command sometimes, is that the police department is only one segment of my responsibility. And so when I hear like Dan Carmine, Bobby, just like, you know, fuck marijuana, whatever, I just write them off. They're brain dead, right? But it is what it is. Just as much as Ventura's brain dead. Like, these are people that, as much as I fuck with them, they're not people that you want driving the future of San Andreas, right?
They're not thinking big picture.
Precisely, right? Because you can
I think I'm thinking the big picture. That's why I think I'm now, like, on my second run through the PD, I'm like, how can this be better in 3 months?
I would say, based on what you've told me, the little bits that you've been able to tell me, is that your frustrations lie with the fact that you are thinking big picture, because you're wanting to help, especially lower rank officers, officer, PPO, cadet, and you want to have that responsibility and you want to see other things change in the department to better benefit them, and that's not happening for whatever reason.
Well, so
I've been very vocal, almost to a point of
I think
annoying with them.
I am hearing what you're saying, Forte, right? And I believe that you are voicing a frustration, not similar necessarily, but probably in the same vein as a lot of officers, regardless of department, have a problem, concern, etc. And as with every human, they're going to think that they have a solution, right? Have you considered, and this is not me saying like, hey, Forte, like I'm not going to do anything with this, but I'm saying, well, what is your solution that is practical? To me, it sounds like you should be pushing towards getting FTO. That's what I hear from
2 weeks, sir.
Actually, thank for the 1 year.
I've been told time and time again, talk to me tomorrow. Then I do.
You said Den didn't even know that you were a full
Den
officer.
did not. Den wasn't even aware that I've been an officer for over a month.
Yeah. Well, well, then
Maxwell
talk to
just
Peters.
Tells me, yeah. Peters just kind of writes me off. That's just Peters. He's not. He's just being him. I've talked to Moss, and Moss was the best conversation I've had. I basically told her, I was like, I want to be a senior for you because I know exactly what I can do in that role.
Okay.
There's some things I can't do as an officer, like write complaints. Because then I have to find a senior to hand that off to. Where the fuck is that, Yeah,
I think a lot of this has been a consequence of the political drama that's been,
I can also agree with that,
right?
Yeah.
Like, you've got
Everyone's
the marshals, like, fucking coming in, and luckily they don't even show up at the meeting anymore. I mean, you've seen how... so now we are at a... Look, there's been offices in LSPD that have likely just been waiting until Moss got, like, removed, right? And that's a very inherent toxic environment for any organization to be able to build up. Unfortunately, my original suggestion 3 months ago was never adhered to. I told them wipe the entire fucking PD. Like, not all of it, but you have to. And I think a lot of, transparently, I think a lot of people are afraid of those things because it comes with a lot of, what is the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of fear of, anytime you hear things like restructure or like wipe or shit like that, people freak the fuck out. Except the reality of the matter, it's a natural course for every other organization in San Andreas. Gangs kick off and stop fresh all the time. There's a new mayor's office every 3 months, unless reelected. And what that allows is a building of a strong foundation based on a set of ordeals, and then you build off of that, right? And how tall and how good that iteration of something becomes, nobody knows, right? And it's kind of been built up a little bit backwards with the LSPD, right? In that I think there's a lot that fit the mold, but a whole lot that knew damn well that they never did. And that's been holding the PD back tremendously, right? So it's a lot of exerted energy in places that weren't worth exerting to begin with, right?
Another thing I wanted to bring up was basically BCSO is just like poaching all the officers right now. I've had an offer. I told them to go fuck themselves. So
wait, when did you get offered a position?
Yesterday. It wasn't an official offer. It was more of a, well, if you need a new home, we have you, kind of vibe.
Who said that to you?
Now shit talking. Now I'm shit talking.
It's not shit talking. You're talking to the mayor of Los Santos.
There were other officers that were leaving or considering leaving as well, right?
Oh, they're actively leaving.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
I know DOC says it has applications in from LSPD officers too.
Yeah.
DOC is taking LSPD applications, like from officers going to DOC.
Yeah.
What the fuck
So
is going on?
here's kind of where I see things, right? You have to understand, and I'm going to be rather straightforward. The LSPD High Command does not have a backbone. And as a side effect of that, they've been drinking this Kool-Aid that maybe things are going to get better instead of putting their foot down. They always revert back because they're afraid. Why? I don't know. It's usually because they end up dealing with people crying and kicking their feet and like, oh my God, oh my God. And then when those little babies get the little binky in their mouth, they end up leaving anyways, right? And yeah,
That's a fair point.
it's why our office has remained as strong as it has. My office particularly, because when faced with challenges that are against our principles, we hold strong. And you have to hold strong. If you don't, you get abused.
Yeah.
And this is a lesson which unfortunately LSPD High Command has not yet learned, right? You give chances, it'll get better and better. You know, all that's doing is you're just slowing down the inevitable instead of taking the inevitable and then going from there. And eventually too, you know, you do that long enough, you're going to be burnt out, right?
Yep.
It
actually brings up a funny question Moss asked me when I was talking to her. She said, Forte, are you scared of me? And I said, absolutely not. I respect you because you're my boss, but I am no way, shape, or form in fear of you. Nor Peters.
I don't think fear is a necessity, right?
Yeah.
But it's I think fear is not the equivalent of
It's a tactic.
it's a tactic, yeah. I mean, you can have a lot of things. You can have fear, you can have respect. There's a number of things that can lead you to a good outcome. I think Moss has a good head on his shoulders, right? But
He's incredible.
when I look at the reality of the matter is that allowing a department to depend on undependable elements is a recipe for disaster, right?
Yeah.
And if you are standing here and saying that you can be dependable and you're not getting feedback from your command, then that's a problem.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening with not just me, but this is pretty much from any officer that is worth their weight. Like, for example, Doc Masters. I think he's God tier, in lack of better terms. That man is, yes, when you talk to him, he sounds like a squirrel, but his knowledge and what he can say and the input he gives is like, I don't understand why he's not a captain kind of idea. Like, you know, metaphorically, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's just so many people that are overlooked that could actually be a really, 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 if you put them all in good positions, in positions that they can actually say something and feel like they can say something and be empowered.
Yeah.
This department would be on its head because there's people that just stop showing up because they could never get out of cadet queue.
I mean, but that's a I'm gonna speak to Daisy, and so my hands have been tied until recently, right? Like I said, we've been dealing with a lot. I'm gonna be significantly more hands-on over the next 2.5 months, and that does mean expecting a progress report, right? I will say that personally, I'm tapped in enough with the police department that these transfers do not concern me one bit, because I haven't seen the fruits of those three's labor or anyone else that's transferred. That's just one extra body that's going to a shootout or one extra body that's standing in a circle, right?
That's very true.
And so these are just like dusty Pokemon cards that, you know, have crashed in value, right? What I'm more interested in is how LSPD invests into the future of their department. And so I'm going to take this conversation and you know, I'm going to take the hot, but like I said, we do have plans. So
I think what you just said was my main concern is the future of it, right? And the Pokemon card thing, it's pretty based.
Well, like I said, Nakota was, like, as an example, somebody that I was told was a huge loss, but the fuck has Nakota done other than I don't know what he's done. You know what I mean? I you know, say what you want about Den and Maxwell, and yeah, look, Den's a fucking bozo, right? But they ultimately conducted a raid, regardless of whether it went well or not. That produced something, right? You know, you see where my point here is, right?
Yes, 100%.
What are you producing of note, of memorability? It's just right now they're just bodies.
Based on little bits of context I've gotten from you, Forte, and you can speak to both your experience with this and what you maybe have observed of other officers. If you feel like, you know, you or others are being overlooked or not moved forward at a pace that they should be, especially if you or they have expressed that they've wanted it, has anyone in your command chain been giving you feedback on things you need to improve on to actually reach those levels?
One singular. King. That guy has been with me since day fucking one. He has always been my number one support. He is probably the best shift one I can say that is King, Sergeant King. He is fucking incredible. He talks so blatantly up front to all officers, and I think he would have the best opinion on anything. He's been nothing but an absolute godsend since day one for me.
Yeah.
So I guess my point is, and I'm not saying this is necessarily the case with you, but just in a generalized sense, if someone expresses that they want a promotion, you know, and maybe you know their higher ups don't feel that they're qualified for it or whatever, like, do you feel like people are just getting left unread and, you know, like, oh, they're not qualified, we're just gonna do that? Or is it okay?
What we used to do in shift 3 when Captain Turner was under the helm, rip the homie. Well, he's not dead, but he got on a train.
He did love trains.
He loved trains. He would routinely make his FTOs do routine checkups on officers. And if they, like, once every 2 weeks, pull them for a meeting. Hey, what's going on? Any concerns? Anything of note? How's your experience? They don't do that shit anymore.
Yeah, it's something I've been working on. I mean, you saw. Look, I'm not upholding to any chain of command. Here's look. You're talking to the mayor right now. Some of these guys are not very good at delegation, is the issue, and so they end up with so much on their plate. Right, when the reality is that chief and ass chief is a political management position. It is nothing more, it is nothing less. So in that meeting when the whole Den Act, Peters wanted to do it. Why?
Yeah,
he's got other things, right? And if delegation is a issue at the top, it's not going to bleed down. So here's what I'm going to do, Forte. I will talk to Peters directly. I will talk to Moss, and I will bring your name up.
Okay.
Okay.
Delegation. That's actually what I brought up to Maeve here about Maxwell. Yeah. Actually, she does like 18 things. She's great, by the way.
Yeah. The mostest, yeah.
So, but when you talk to her about like something like this, she's kind of like checked out, you know, doing something else. No. Maxwell.
Oh, Maxwell.
She
yeah.
is probably
To
the
be-
worst
she,
at delegation.
I don't know if I agree with that because I've been in a vehicle with her. I think what you're experiencing isn't a delegation issue. She's actually quite decent at it. I think her thing is that I think Maxwell genuinely is the most productive member of both departments combined. She's
overworked.
She's overworked because she looks to her left and her right, and all these other FTOs aren't doing shit. She looks to her left and her right, and people aren't taking on their command responsibilities. Most people want to bitch and complain, and then if they don't get what they want, they transfer. The reality is that it's laziness.
It's lazy police work, is what I told her.
Well, it's lazy everything, right? Because at the end of the day, she still has a sense of responsibility, right? Both departments should be absolutely ashamed with themselves with the Hydra raid, right? There's a lot of mistakes made. But if you're going to sit up in Blaine County saying that you want responsibility to Los Santos County, but your dumb fuck ass notices that something's amiss and you don't bring it forward, you are a trash officer. And the only people that are going to convince you otherwise are probably your friends around you. But from any, I think, like pragmatic reviewing of the situation, if 12 people are working on a job together, it is everyone's collective responsibility that that effort is successful. And if something's amiss and you use it for your political advantage, are you really operating as law enforcement?
Yeah. But instead it was Maxwell, Forte, and Doc standing in a briefing room for 3 days working on warrants.
Exactly. So, yeah.
We had to fix everything.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even fully fixed. It was still busted, but...
Cosmetic cops. So, you know...
That's a crazy statement, but I agree.
It's not crazy, though.
It's so right, though.
Yeah, like, I owe it to nobody to, like... Look, I mean, you have to understand that, look, on the day-to-day, and Michael can absolutely attest to it because he's been in a lot of these conversations. A lot of, like, even conversations at the top here, right, is they end up bleeding into, like, these, like, very emotional... Everything is so emotional.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, if you and I are on two ends of a spectrum on whatever, you know, there's a problem that exists, right? Either I have a problem, you have a problem, or there's a problem we have to solve. If we're both not operating under being upfront about desires and on the same, working towards achieving a solution to a pragmatic issue, but we're instead relying on what do I personally want to desire, or how do I personally feel about you? Is there any progress that's going to be made? No, there's not.
Yeah.
Because you're just not, you know, you're just not, there's nothing to work off of at that stage, right? And so
people dig their feet in.
Yeah.
Right? They have their position, they dig their feet in. They don't approach these conversations in good faith, and they're just unwilling to move from their opinion. And it's
100%,
been
yeah.
it's been 4.5 months of this, Forte.
Yeah. It's having a position that's not based on principles, be it the law or be it on moral principles. And when your principles are wavering is when things don't make sense anymore. Where 1 minute you're willing to shoot somebody and the next you're not because of X, Y, and Z. You know, actually, I came to the realization, I recommend watching a video on YouTube by Vertasium. Do you know who he is? He's like this.
Vertasium.
Yeah, he's a very popular YouTuber. He does like science videos and shit. He recently did a video on statistics, numerosity, and its relationship to politics, and it genuinely speaks volumes in regards to San Andreas politics, be it between departments, legislative authorities, etc., where the TLDR of the video is studies have shown that people's political opinion clouds their rationale. So, and I'm not talking about like red versus blue and shit like that. I mean, politics seeps into everything, right?
Yeah.
Like what you're facing right now. You're facing effectively a political issue, internal LSPD politics. So,
Oh shit. Hey, you right.
yeah. So, look, I appreciate you approaching me
Yeah.
in regards to it, and like I said, we'll have a chat with Daisy and Peters.
All right.
All right.
Do you
Appreciate
feel
it.
like this addressed everything you want to bring up? Forte?
Did I miss anything?
I
don't
do
know,
think
'cause I
it's
only ever get bits and pieces from you, but I think so. I think you got everything.
I do think it's important that you let us know who approached you with the open invite, because I want you to think about it this way. You were talking to the mayor of Los Santos, and he's hearing that a different company is trying to poach individuals, right? And unless those names are brought forward, and I could do so in a way that masks your name, you have to understand that your high command is probably operating under the belief that they're dealing with the individual. Let me give you why Nakota's name came up earlier. This fucking spineless bitch went and contested a bunch of our legislation without telling us how, who, what, where. I don't think I've spoken to this guy more than 2 minutes. And instead of coming to having a conversation, debate, whatever, and coming to resolution, he had the audacity to claim that he never contested shit. Little does he know that I have people even in Blaine County that tell me things. And I knew while he was collecting signatures that he was doing so throughout the police department. So you have to understand that same behavior is what Moss and Peters probably deal with on a daily basis, where people will smile to your face but do not have the balls to tell you their problem directly. So they probably don't even know there's people lingering around, whispering, hey, it's so much better up north. We get to do whatever we want.
Yeah.
Little did they realize what's about to come.
I told Maeve just now.
It's your thing to tell. I don't think there's any harm in saying it, and I don't think it's necessarily, meant in the way that Nino just implied it was. It might have just been as a friend, but
How about you cough if I get it right?
Okay.
Ventura. Nakota. Cassidy.
Cassidy would not report that job.
Cassidy hates my guts. I told him that I literally told him to his face that he's a spineless prick.
Wait, Bones?
He also hates me.
What the fuck? Who the fuck is trying to poach? Was it someone from BCSO?
Yeah.
You met with him the other day, actually.
I don't know.
We had to scrape him off the middle of the street.
Jimbo? Oh, okay. I wouldn't. Okay. I don't think Jimbo. Jimbo's a good guy. I don't think he was trying to poach. I think he was.
I think he was probably just concerned for you as like a friend or whatever. If you're unhappy, like you two get along.
I hate him.
I told Nino that I thought your two's vibes was like stepbrothers.
What the fuck? No, it's not.
Yeah.
He did tell me that, you know, I think he actually referenced Step Brothers.
I have a feeling if he touched his drum set, he'd be real mad.
Yep. All right. Okay, Forte. Well,
Yep.
I
was
I
Jimbo,
appreciate
so
it.
it was like semi-serious. Nakota like likes me, but I don't think he would ever actually like talk to me longer than 3 minutes.
I will say, from what I remember, the first time around that you were employed, Nakota was one of the few that actually bothered to like listen to your concerns. So, you know, he might be doing shady shit with contesting or whatever.
I did go up to their briefing one day just to, you know, be an extension, just to listen, you know.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of the people who don't like. I came back into the department that I didn't really give a fuck about this whole like divide thing. I just went with it, right? I'm like, we're all cops at the end of the day. But their response to me just being in that room was uncomfortable. They were like loving me. Just like it was like a mass like, oh my god, we're the best up here.
Oh, were they? They were love bombing.
They were like they were kissing my ass. It was weird, and I was like,
it's
what the hell's going on?
Why do you think I called it Pokemon cards earlier? Right? The department has been operating on collecting names, and I say to myself, what have those names exactly produced? Look, do you want to hear how I truly feel about the PD?
If you're offering, yeah.
We love honesty.
Do not think I have seen a more disgraceful series of police department iterations over ever in my lifetime than I have over the last 6 months. And a large part of that is the inherent feeling that I never sensed. Well, you could sense it back during the era of the 3 captains. But man, after those 3 captains, every law enforcement officer from one down at the bottom all the way to the top believes that they're irreplaceable, that they can get away with whatever. And yeah, you have folks like Den that probably resonate that to a degree because he does do wild shit, but it is a stink that I think plagues the ability for either departments to actually be great. Because a department is only ever as good as they are held accountable by the people. And that is my opinion as a civilian. And unless the police and the government are afraid of the people, that is not anything to be proud of. It's a principle that the U.S. was built on. Let's not forget that.
So the trooper ID is kind of like washed.
I don't think you're anywhere near that at the moment.
Damn it.
I don't
Maybe
think
start
this
as
is
an
the right
FDO
time.
and show your worth.
Well, I can't. That's the whole. Oh man.
That's why I'm having the conversation, Forte.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm sorry. I was about to crash out.
yeah.
That's the whole premise. All right. You guys have your meeting. Thank you for talking with me.
Yep. Absolutely.
Oh, I got your
Thanks,
text, by
Forte.
the way. Thanks for taking a look at it.
Of course.
I wrote it myself.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Forte.
Yeah? That's crazy.
All right.